Hi, welcome to Off Script. I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Today on the show, we're taking a look at The Fall Guy. The new Ryan Gosling, Emily Blunt comedy is finally out. Action comedy, I should say, and we're excited to talk about it. We're also going to take a look at Challengers, Luca Guadagnino's new feature. Very excited to talk about Challengers. Please stick around for the Challengers review. Oh boy, excited to talk about Challengers. Fall Guy's also great. We're going to talk about what's going on with Paramount and Sony. A couple developments this weekend regarding acquisitions. And before we get to all that, we need to talk about the news. Our first story this week, Nathan Fielder's making a movie, Andy. You may have heard about this.
The king of cringe himself.
The king... Andy is a recent adopter of Nathan Fielder. I've never really come around. He did Nathan For You. He's a comedian, I should say. Did Nathan For You, a few seasons of television. Followed that up with The Curse on HBO, which was really exciting. Andy got into it. I thought it was way too cringe and couldn't get into it. Emma Stone's also in it. Benny Safdie helped put it together. Now he's working with A24 on a new project. What is this, Andy?
Yes, Emma Stone and Nathan Fielder are reteaming for a chess film that's based on a book that has yet to be written by Ben Mesrick, who famously wrote the books for The Social Network and Dumb Money. So a big name in Hollywood. This book hasn't even been written yet, and they're already optioning the movies. But this is about the chess scandal in 2022 that occurred between Magnus Carlsen and Hans Niemann. Magnus Carlsen being pretty much like the most dominant chess player of all time at the moment. In the fall of 2022, they were playing a classical tournament together. Where Magnus Carlsen lost the big upset by the younger, much lower rated Hans Niemann. Magnus immediately quit, forfeited the tournament, left, and indirectly accused Hans Niemann of cheating. And it launched this international scandal that was in every paper. It was in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and just bits of drama kept coming up every day, every week. There was some new development. And it's chess. It's funny. It's really like it's about a game, but it turned in. There were just left and right turns everywhere. It's perfect for cringe. One of the most famous things that came out of it was, people were asking, well, how do you cheat in chess exactly? And the answer is you use a chess engine, a chess computer to find the perfect move, and you got to have someone kind of relay it to you. In a game. This has happened before. There's been multiple chess cheating scandals over time. And a joke kind of took off and went viral. And that was a joke on Reddit where someone said, well, Hans Niemann, maybe he hid a device up his rear end, and that's how he was telegraphing signals were being sent. And this is obviously a joke, but the joke went viral, and that joke eventually turned into like real news stories, respected publications publishing like, did he cheat? And did he cheat this way? It's just a fascinating thing. And even if you're not into chess, if you're into any sport, there are heroes and villains of the game and scandals and personalities. And this is perfect for Nathan Fielder's brand of comedy. Like, it's going to be so uncomfortable and so cringy, and I can't wait to see it.
I think one of the things that was so exciting about this story was all of the smoke and none of the fire. Nobody had any real facts about whether or not Niemann was actually cheating, but just the idea and the potential and the concept of cheating at that level in a way that is functionally indirect, because you're right, nobody could tell Niemann exactly what moves to play, so that was weird. I think SNL did a bit about it. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia dedicated an episode to this. And apparently this book proposal had some really funny offers attached to it. They had a 12-page book proposal for selling Checkmate to different studios. Apparently 6 different studios wanted a piece of it. Ron Howard was attached to direct it, and the guy who wrote Air, Alex Convery, was going to headline a package for Amazon. Netflix and Apple had a deal with Taron Egerton attached to star. Harry Potter producer David Heyman was involved with Warner Brothers. Apparently, all of this came down to A24 diving in with a guaranteed 7-figure offer that only lasted for 30 minutes. They said, for the next 30 minutes, if you take this deal, we will give you 7 figures. And it was accepted. A24 has it. Not only are they now competing, especially after Civil War, they're in the space. They want the heat. But apparently, A24 is doing Checkmate from Nathan Fielder. Bananas. The book, I can't get over the fact the book hasn't been written yet. Like, how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, it just means he has the heat and he knows what he's doing. Like The Social Network, that movie's not about Facebook, like it is, but it's about a lot of other things. It's very deeply thematic, and this is the kind of thing about this too. There's very strong personalities in chess. There were there wasn't really any evidence of cheating in this match, but there was lots of cheating by Hans Niemann in previous online matches, which he had been caught. There were other people that had been caught. There were people doing obscene amounts of statistical analysis, being like, "Well, someone rated this right. Could only play. He's played this many games at 100% accuracy." But I mean, it was crazy for like a whole year. And I'm a big chess player. I told everyone, like, as soon as it happened, I was like, "Oh my god." Magnus just dropped out of this tournament, and it's like, I think it's going to be like a big deal. And then it was like the biggest story in chess for like a year.
Yeah. Well, there's nobody nobody better to take on this like strange story than I think Fielder, and no studio better to host him than A24. They've got the chops to carry him into national movie theaters. And I think like set him up for audiences to like receive his brand of comedy, similar to what they did with Daniels, right? Like Swiss Army Man was weird, but then Everything Ever All at Once comes along. Everybody knows who they are now. Like this could be huge for Nathan Fielder and whatever's next. I know his boy Benny Safdie's got his back. Of course, he's working on the Smashing Machine with The Rock. We reported on that last week. Go check out that story if you want to hear it. But keep it here on Off Script for more of whatever Fielder's doing. In the meantime, I probably need to take another swing at the curves. God, that show makes me cringe, man. I know it's like fake, but like it's just something about it gets under my skin. It's really hard to nail down.
Through.
Magical art, I tell you. James Gunn's new Superman suit is out. Oh my God. You got to go watch the video version of the show to see us looking at this, or give it a Google. I'm excited to talk about it. Andy, a resident comic man, knows what this is. What am I looking at here, Andy? What is this? For the audio, people, describe at home a little bit.
One of the one of the advantages of being terminally online, like myself, is I saw James Gunn post this about 5 minutes after he did, and it was our first look at David Corenswet in the Superman suit. In the photo, he is seated in a chair, in kind of a suit that looks distressed. Like it looks like he's been fighting people. It's dirty. It's a little ragged. He's putting on his boots, and we have the iconic curl in his hair. We don't get a good look at the whole thing. He is wearing the red trunks. That's a big deal because in Zack Snyder's Superman, they axed the red trunks. So Superman fans are happy about that. And then in the background, there's this big like orb laser seemingly trying to destroy Earth or something going on in the background. And the colors that a lot of people are saying, like, this is hinting at Brainiac possibly being one of the villains. If you don't know who Brainiac is, he's like a big alien super intelligence, takes multiple forms, a little bit like Ultron from the Avengers universe. But this is our first actual like real shot from the movie of the actor in the suit. And I'm super excited. And this is 14 months out. We're quite a ways away still.
It's all part of course, Gunn's promotion of the film, which he'll be directing. And as co-CEO of DC, he, of course, wants this to work. Recently, they posted some pics from the set of David and Rachel Brosnahan, who's playing Lois Lane, and James Gunn, all holding like Superman #1 issue comics. And they've kind of made some teases of the script in the past with a couple of quick clips on Instagram, but like nothing really solid like this. This is our first real look at the suit and the guy. And it's pretty good. Like that silhouette says Superman. You know what I mean? He's got the colors. He looks good in the suit. I'm excited to see what he's suiting up for. And I love this like image in the back, like out the window of something blowing up Metropolis. Like whatever that is, he's going to fight it. It looks great. It's like purple and weird. It's got these weird lasers coming out of it. I swear those two towers down there are LexCorp building. They gotta be. Like I don't know what's going on, but like it's kind of perfect. Like you got your man and you got your world, and it's just enough to get people talking. I'm impressed. I don't know who's running DC's marketing over there, but they're on it. This is a good move, good post quality. I like it.
I'm super excited. Again, Superman is essentially an alien property, and so we need to have alien villains, which I'm hoping that's what Brainiac will be. Also, I anticipate we'll probably get a teaser like in July. A lot of times, big movies like this, you might get a teaser about a year out. So I think we'll probably have one this summer.
Yes, Superman's set to open in theaters July 11th, 2025. from Warner Brothers, so it's going to be a minute, but keep it on off script for more. Speaking of exciting alien movies, Vin Diesel's making a new Riddick movie. Oh boy, how do we not hear about this? We talked about our most anticipated of the year at the beginning of the year. Nobody had Riddick on the list. Nobody saw this coming, but now the Fast and Furious is winding down. My man Vin needs a new property to glom onto, and it's got to be the world of Pitch Black. What do you know about this, Andy?
So Vin Diesel continues to squeeze blood from a stone, and with this fourth Riddick movie, which launched in 2000, the original was a kind of B movie, sci-fi cult classic. It became a hit on like DVD, and it spawned two other films. And now he's back with a fourth one. I haven't actually seen the second and third. I have no idea what goes on. But the first one is a creature feature, and that's really what made it something special in that first movie. Whenever night falls, all these creatures come out, and this group of crash landed space people have to survive the night, and he's the only one because he's like can see in the dark and all this stuff. So I think it's going to be getting back to those roots, but it's amazing to see this being made again like 25 years later.
I've never seen any of these Riddick features. I kind of just missed them. I did play the demo for the Xbox 360 game, The Chronicles of Riddick Assault on Dark Athena, which was a good time, actually. It was a good game. Never bought the whole thing. I don't even think I rented it. But if you've seen Riddick, if you've seen any of the promotional stuff for this, you'll remember Vin Diesel with like those trademark, like big circular steampunk goggles, right? Bare arms, guns out, guns blazing. For what that is, I think this will probably be good. I do think the name is a little convenient. Eddie and I were talking about this before the show. Riddick Furia sounds an awful lot like Furiosa. Obviously unrelated universes, have nothing to do with George Miller, but maybe a little bit of cross-brand promotion, right? Maybe a little bit of kind of sounds like, reminds me of that other orange sci-fi film in the desert. I mean, I don't know what Riddick Fury is going to be, but like I said at the top, Fast and Furious is winding down, right? This next one's supposed to be the last one Vin Diesel's in, reportedly. He needs something big to jump into. Mad Max took off. I mean, the right director, the right hands, we might have some smoke. Dune is a big thing. Mad Max is a big thing. I mean, who knows, right? Like, maybe.
Right. Well, you have the the superhero genre is really suffering right now, and that does lead way for other properties to kind of come in and kind of have their movies stand out a little bit more. And Riddick could be something along those lines, along like you mentioned Dune, or even things like Barbie and Oppenheimer. You just a different property, something that's not a caped film for people to get excited about.
Yeah. Let's remember Vin Diesel does own the rights to this. He bought this in 2013 after the Chronicles of Riddick didn't really pop. It could be hot, or it could be like that superhero movie Bloodsport he was in that like everybody forgot about, right? Like, was it called Bloodsport? Bloodshot. Was it Bloodshot? I don't even know. Believe it or not, I own that DVD. Somebody gave it to me as like a gift, and it's still in the plastic. I never even bothered. We should get together sometime and check it out. Vin Diesel's superhero movie from 2022. Anyway, keep it on off script for more from Riddick Furia. We'll probably check it out. This sounds like something we'll end up watching. One more story this week before we jump into The Fall Guy from the box office. The Fall Guy has been making a lot of waves on film Twitter because it did pretty good, I think. But then some people say it did pretty bad. Andy, how did The Fall Guy do at the box office this weekend?
The Fall Guy did okay. It underperformed a little bit, opened at $28.5 million. They were really hoping for somewhere in the mid-30s. So they weren't really hoping for a huge, like, kind of blockbuster opening, not like a $70 or $80 million opening, despite it being a very expensive film. It was a $150 million film after tax credits. And it looks at it. I mean, the money is well spent in the movie, but the return is pretty low. But it seems like they kind of anticipated that. But the box office weekend is down over 50% from last year. Of course, last year opened up with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, a huge, well-liked comic book property. So no surprise there. So it's not exactly the same comparison, but it's definitely down. And a big surprise, number 2 at the box office was Star Wars The Phantom Menace in its 25th anniversary re-release.
Yeah, big bummer for Luca Guadagnino's Challengers, which would have been number 2 had the Phantom Menace not come along and probably pushed it out. But hey, great for Star Wars, right? I love that, like, I'm a big fan of the Phantom Menace revisionist history, right? People are going back and be like, maybe this was clever. Maybe this unique art design was something good, because they see where Star Wars has gone, like, since Disney bought it, and it's really samey, and suddenly there's like this warm glow on those original films, and like, I don't know, man. Maybe this is the way it's meant to be. People are gonna act like the prequel trilogy are like a hidden gem. There's a lot of good stuff in there, but I don't know.
For
Meanwhile,
me, for me it's the opposite. It is like the Phantom Menace only gets worse with time. As I think, especially as I've matured as a film goer, I remember I saw some great analysis, but one of the things, it just lacks basic narrative cohesion. Like, for instance, it's unclear who the main character is
who's
in
the main
episode
character?
one.
Yeah.
It's like half the time it's Qui-Gon Jinn, half the time it's Obi-Wan. It's really unclear, because it's just kind of, it's trying to do too much. And this was kind of where Star Wars really was in its merchandising era, where it was like, oh, this is the biggest merchandising property of all time. We gotta sell toys, we gotta sell rides, and you didn't really have any story. But it looks cool, and I will say the trailer for the Phantom Menace, like, go watch it. It's amazing. Like, you want to see, like, I would love to see the movie that trailer is about, because it still will give you chills. And then the actual movie came out.
Meanwhile, I know at the same time we did have the May 4th come and go here, so a lot of May the 4th celebrations, Star Wars marathons, and theaters running all 9 movies over 24 hours with 40-minute breaks in between. Like, that was a big thing. We didn't do any of that. Andy and I are too old. Like, there was a time, I think, but the last big movie marathon I went and saw. Go ahead.
The best way to marathon is like one movie a day. Like, if you're like, I think I did like before 3 John Wicks, like one a day, 3 days in a row. That's, you need some time in between.
The last marathon I did was before the first Avengers movie. They ran all the Avengers individual movies. So Iron Man 1 and 2, Captain America, Thor. I don't think they might have run Edward Norton's Hulk. I don't remember. But that was the last one I think I saw. Otherwise, it's been... Oh, and I did go see one for the Cornetto trilogy in front of the World's End. So Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz. Hot Fuzz, always great in the theater. I don't think The Fall Guy was really... I don't think it's a flop. I mean, maybe. I know it costs like $135 million to shoot, but like $30 million opening is pretty good, man. Like, I don't know. I have a hard time complaining.
I think it's a little weak for a size. I mean, to compare Civil War, which just came out, also opened to about the same number, about 25 million, and it costs a third of that. So,
well, it doesn't. It also doesn't.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
For a big budget like Hollywood movie, it should definitely be doing better.
I guess that's true. It doesn't get any love for nostalgia for me, or at least like hardly. I completely forgot it was based on a previous property. Like, completely forgot watching the movie. It has nothing to do with the old one, right? Like, it's a total reboot, which is great and fine. But the old one was a TV series starring Lee Majors. This is Ryan Gosling. This is The Fall Guy. We should probably just move into it. So, Andy's going to take the summary on this one. Excited to talk about it. Andy, please take it away.
The Fall Guy. So this is the latest action rom-com from director David Leitch, who is also a former stunt person himself. It features Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt. Ryan Gosling is Colt Seavers, a seasoned stuntman working in Hollywood. He's loves his job, has a fun time, has a will they won't they kind of relationship with Emily Blunt's character Jody, who's a camera operator and then later director on film. He suffers an accident at the very beginning of the film, and it's kind of out of the game for a while, and he falls into a deep depression and disappears, shuns all of his friends and relationships, eventually gets called back to be a stunt guy on a film that keep wanting to say Jodie Comer, Emily Blunt's character, whose name is Jodie, that's shooting in Australia, and he has to kind of work to repair the relationship. But more importantly, the star of the film, Tom Ryder, played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, in a very in a nod to Tom Cruise, has gone missing, and so Colt Seavers is hired to find out what's going on, and we find out that there's this bigger, larger kind of conspiracy at work. In the meantime, there's loads of stunts going on along the way. Colt Seavers uses all his stuntman know-how, his like fighting skills and his knowledge of like weapons to kind of fight and shoot his way out of dangerous situations. It's a lot of fun. It's got some issues as well. Let's get into it. Zach, what'd you think?
So The Fall Guy is a lot of fun. It's good action and it's funny. Ryan Gosling is good. Emily Blunt is good. I've seen everybody generally receiving this movie as a good time. I think this movie's edited really poorly. And like, I haven't seen anybody with this take, but like, characters are just leaping around rooms in this movie. There will be large jumps in time. Characters will just change sets kind of intermittently. It's really odd. There's large parts of the trailers that aren't featured in the film because they were edited out. It's really strange, and it makes for a long movie with like bursts of dopamine and then boring bits in between. Like I like watching it in the theater. I felt like times when the audience is like into a scene and they're laughing and they're with it. The music's up, and there's other bits where it's like you could hear a pin drop in the theater. It's so boring and nobody's talking. And I think overall it's good. I think maybe I'm just a little sour on it because I really found myself getting kind of bored with what was going on in The Fall Guy in the first act, and then it just continues for the next two acts. But overall, I think it's good, and I think maybe I'm just being a little too cynical. I think I'm being a little too harsh on our opening summer number here. Andy, what did you think of The Fall Guy?
I thought it was really okay. like, it's a big Hollywood production. It's got great stunts. This movie should work better than it does because you got big stars who are really popular right now. You got a pretty big budget. This is based on a show from the 80s, but it's really kind of original. It's a big homage to stunt people. It's fun. It's a comedy. There's lots of action, and somehow it just doesn't really work. It's boring. It's too long. The jokes are okay, like they're like you'll chuckle, but nothing's really all that funny. I saw it in a mostly empty theater, and it was just like a few chuckles here and there. It should really work better, and it just kind of doesn't.
Yeah, so let's kind of jump into it here. Where's the best place to tackle this? Stars, plot? Where do you want to start?
Let's get into this plot. So there's two main storylines. There is this romance between Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt, who they've kind of fallen out and they're working to kind of repair their relationship. And then there's also the kind of B movie caper of the star of the movie has gone missing. You have to go find him. There was a weird balance between these two plots, and I couldn't tell what was the main plot and which was the subplot for half the time because they're both given so much about equal amount of importance throughout, and so it just doesn't really work in that sense. The other thing, you never believe that these two don't like each other in the course of the romance. Like there's no real like animosity between the two. It's just kind of like he's kind of upset her a little bit and has to get back into her good graces, but you're never unsure whether or not that's gonna actually happen. Like the romance just isn't there's not a lot of chemistry. I don't think.
I think you're right. It's got two plots and it really only needs one. And I forgot about the trailer plot until about a third of the way in this movie when they introduce like, oh, Ryan Gosling has to go looking for the guy he's stunt doubling for, Tom Ryder. Yes, this big global phenomenon played by Aaron Taylor Johnson. Like the first third of the movie is Ryan Gosling's just trying to like spend time with and get to know Emily Blunt's like director character. And as like a stunty or a stuntman, he's a guy who's always throwing thumbs up and getting blown up on, and going through glass walls and stuff like that. And that's all fun and good. And that makes for good visuals and a fun pace. But like that seems to be the focus of the movie for the first third. And then it like pivots and it's like, oh yeah, by the way, there's this whole caper that's supposed to be going on that's in the trailer that's like really advertised. And then that stuff's like uniquely clumsy. Like it's weird. And I didn't expect it to be, but it turns into a whole lot of like, he said, she said, Ryan Gosling running around going, what do I do? And then somebody calls his phone and they're like, the movie producer's going to cancel the movie unless you do this. And so he goes to some hotel and asks for somebody that somebody tells him. And then they're like, well, the director said this is going to happen unless we do this. And like, it just turns into this real game of like, call me maybe kind of thing. And it's clunky. And I think a big part of the reason that is because when they were putting the movie together, David Leitch, who directed this and was a former stuntman, he's directed other features. This is not his first, right? He did Atomic Blonde. He did Deadpool 2, I think. Bullet Train, right? Like, he might have done the first Deadpool, now that I think about it. Also brought his editor over from that, Elizabeth Ronald Soder. That's not how you pronounce it, but she has edited these other features. This is not their first rodeo, I guess what I'm saying. But like, it ends up feeling really disjointed. And it just feels like it was just put together in the editing room. Like, they shot all these scenes and they were like, we gotta put something together here, make this a feature. And it, like, some scenes run too long. Others are like a funny bit, but that don't really make sense and just come off feeling like a Family Guy sketch more than like a real grounded event that might happen in the course of making a film. Though it is, I should say, a movie that's a lot about making movies. It's a lot of filming on sets where people are making stuff and talking to stunt coordinators and getting somebody over here. There's two great oneers that this movie does. They do it twice. And right in the open, when Gosling, the film opens with him in his trailer and he's talking to Emily Blunt, and then it's like this great oneer where he exits the trailer, walks on the set, gets a coffee, talks to a couple of people, looks at the screen, talks to the director, talks to Tom Ryder, rides an elevator up to a stunt. He's talking to Emily Blunt on the phone. Like, it's great. Like, it totally pulls you into the world of like, these are people who make movies. And then shortly later, Emily Blunt is directing a feature in Australia, and she is getting out of her trailer and walking into set, and there's 9 people buzzing around her. Hey, I need this. We got to get an NDA for that. We got to get this signed off. And well, the pyro is going to go off at this time. We only got one shot at it. And it's the chaos of making a movie. And that all feels like really grounded and good. And seeing these two characters like have that is important for their dynamic, which, like Andy said, like pretty much works all the way through. But then it just this caper thing that like is kind of clunky. And I had forgotten it happened, and it sets up good stuff for Gosling, I guess. It sets up good comedy, I think.
It does. The jokes are fine. Like, they're fine. But this is supposed to be an homage to stunts and stuntmen, persons. And there's a lot of them, but I don't know. It's not as exciting as it should be. I was thinking like, well, I'd rather be watching John Wick. Like, the stunts of John Wick are amazing. It's like, and it's almost like, well, we want to do every stunt under the sun that we can think of, but we can't really think of a real reason movie-wise to do it. So let's just make the movie about stuntmen, and then we can do every stunt we've ever thought of. And it's almost just a little too much, and it's just not cohesive. It'd be better if it was just a better storyline and put together something like Mission Impossible, or like I said, John Wick, where like they force our characters to like, oh, you're going to run off of this building onto a moving train kind of situation.
It's funny because the editor I was just saying may not have done the best job in this movie, Elizabeth Ronald. She also edited John Wick, so I need to definitely walk that back as well. I guess what I'm saying is like I'm surprised at how disjointed it feels, like how disconnected a lot of these scenes are. There's a couple of great examples. When Gosling's character at the end of the first act, he's talking to what's her name, Hannah Whittingham.
Waddingham.
Hannah Waddingham. I've got a bad name. Hannah Waddingham from Ted Lasso. He's talking to her. She's this producer character who's like always drinking a Diet Coke and chained to her phone and wearing glasses and like a big wig. She is explaining to him that he has to go look for Tom Ryder. And when she first starts talking to him in the scene in his trailer, he's just walked in. He's wearing all his costume from filming. He's exhausted. He's jet lagged. He just wants a cup of coffee. And in the middle of their conversation, Gosling moves from across the room in full getup to the couch, laying down with half his outfit off, and she doesn't move at all. And it's a time jump. They were talking like all night, and the sun is coming up, and it's morning now. And it's so quick. I was like baffled looking at it in the theater. It's like, what just happened? Like, because she's the same. She doesn't change at all. He is now in a completely different outfit in a completely different part of the set. This happens a number of times in this film. It's very confusing, especially because so much of the movie is stunts, which are wildly, effectively coordinated to work. They have to be. It's a movie about making stunts. And a lot of that stuff, for all of my slamming and the editing and the narrative, I think works really well. That's the stuff that works the absolute best. In fact, there's a great montage in the open of previous stunts that David Leitch has used. I swear he uses a shot from Atomic Blonde in there if he doesn't just recreate it,
Yeah.
like from his previous works.
Yeah.
And that was cool. A
Absolutely.
little montage of movie stunts, like get me into it, all kinds of stuff. They do set a world record in here, I should say, for rolling a car. They roll a car 8.5 times. They say it in the movie. And then the movie ends with like, during over the credits, like a stunt reel that you could see them do it and talk about how great it is. There's car flips, there's explosions, people thrown off things, there's a boat jump. Like there's all kinds of rad stunts happening in this movie. And for a movie about making stunts, it's a good time. But for all the narrative, it feels like it was like almost improv. We'll just show up on set and figure it out. We'll put it together in the editing room. We'll figure it out in post. Like I feel like they lost the plot literally, like while they were making their stunt movie. And the stunts, great A. The plot makes for a long 2 hours. It gets a little boring in the middle.
Again, it's recently a study came out, a survey where most found that most people prefer a 90-minute movie, which we have advocated for quite a lot. And this is one of those things. This movie would have benefited from cutting like 15, maybe 20 minutes from it. You don't mind if a movie's not great if it's not too long. When it starts to drag on, then it sours your overall opinion.
Yeah, like there were people in my theater like getting their phones out, going to the bathroom. Like it's just like it feels very obvious like when things start to get a little boring. And like that's okay. Like that's not the worst thing going on here. Like I do like a lot of the comedy also. That's worth mentioning. It is a very funny film. Part of the reason it's so funny is genuinely Gosling. My God, my man puts the comedy on his back. Like he'll drop lines in the middle of a fight scene that are really funny. I'm not even sure if they were in the script. They may have just come up with it on set. He's got a charming delivery to him. There's a great scene in here where he finds a body and like falls back out of the shower curtain. And I swear it's like the cut is like maybe 2 seconds and it's over. And it's like, man, what a great pratfall. Like that's the kind of thing I expect from it. It's just like, it's blink and you'll miss it kind of stuff. It makes for a joke a minute kind of feature, like lots of them coming at you. A lot of good laughs. Like they don't all land, of course, but like many do. And I think that makes for good action plus good comedy, which should equal good feature. Additionally, like we said in the news, this is technically a nostalgia property. It's based on a previous show. I don't think this movie gets like any cultural credit for that. Nobody knows that. I've never heard of anybody in my life tell me, you know, it was a great show in the 80s, The Fall Guy starring Lee Majors. No one's ever had the DVD box set of The Fall Guy. I've never seen it. I've never heard of it. Like, I think this stands more as an independent property, and that might be hurting its box office return a little bit.
Yeah, it's again, it's a property no one's really familiar with, and it's just I like the look. Like it's been marketed heavily. I've seen the trailer a ton of times. I was excited for it, but it just it's too much of a B movie.
Yeah, it's odd. Also, the first two fight scenes have no music over them. It's really weird. But Ryan Gosling gets attacked in an apartment, and there's absolutely no music over the fight scene. And then later, he is fighting people at a big party with like rave lights and stuff, and the music's like super pushed down. It's really strange. I don't know why they did that. It's like who decided that? Anyway. For all my balk about whether or not The Fall Guy is narratively driven, I should ask. We should wrap this up. Any other thoughts, Andy, for recommendations?
I think I'm ready.
Andy, would you recommend The Fall Guy?
I would say probably save it for streaming. It is a lot of fun, and if you're looking for something for the whole family to go to, maybe check it out in theaters. But it's definitely it's going to do really well on streaming. It's definitely a better platform for it. I wish it weren't so dull. It's got a lot going for it. You got big stars, big action, big stunts, but the narrative is just really underwhelming. The comedy's a little, it's a lot more miss than hit. So I would say save it for streaming.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat. Save for streaming. There's a few features over the course of a year that Andy and I will really recommend you get out in theaters and see. For action features, those are usually a little broader. For comedies, it's a little tighter. But this one, it's good action. It is, and it's funny. But like, there's bits in the middle where you're gonna want to do your laundry. You know, get up and get another bowl of popcorn kind of stuff. You know, like it's good. it needed a red pen. It needs somebody to go through, cut 20 minutes off the script and be like, this doesn't work. Cut this, get rid of this. Why would he be running around doing this? This doesn't make any sense. Why would this character do that thing? Like, it's a little baffling. But for what's here, like, it's a lot of fun. It's very kinetic. It's funny. Fall Guy's good. It's just not great. And that's the Fall Guy. And with that, we should talk about our next segment on the show. Funny bit of film business here, all right, for our box office heads. Andy, what do we typically call this segment?
It's time for the death of cinema. So, in a surprise move, Sony has put in a bid to purchase Paramount Global for $26 billion in cash. A lot of studios have been courting Paramount. They were also looking at an offer from Skydance, which kind of fell through and was back on the table, and fell through and is back on the table. But this was kind of a big surprise move from Sony. They would get, of course, a lot of IP, but also what I've pointed out is, importantly, they would acquire Paramount Plus, the streaming service. Sony is the only one of the big five studios that does not currently have a streaming service of their own, like Disney, Universal, Warner Brothers, etc. So I think that would be one of the reasons, is that they could acquire that infrastructure without having to build and buy it from scratch. But it's a surprise move for sure. And if this went through, that would mean there would only be 4 big studios in Hollywood.
Paramount is huge. I think it's one of those studios that people like don't really understand how big they are. Like, you might think of like the Paramount Pictures logo, right? The mountain in front of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Like, sure, you're familiar with that, but also you're going to be thinking about things like Nickelodeon, right? SpongeBob SquarePants, all of that. They've got amusement park holdings. They've got CBS television, right? I think is Paramount. They've got, they got movies, shows, they got a streaming platform, like quite a huge bill, I think, to run up. And they have debt. It's worth mentioning. Apollo's offered to buy them before for $27 billion, including their debt. They were turned down. So this may not just roll through. They have been dancing around something before, but it seems like Sony wants pretty much all of it. They don't know what they're going to do about their television, I should say, in here. The 28 local TV stations that CBS owns, that might have to be a little weird, and Sony might have to carve out a separate U.S. ownership structure to make that work, because the FCC says if you're going to have local television, you have to be in the United States. Sony is, of course, a Japanese company, so that might be a little weird. But it would cut the number down from 6 to 5. Or 5 to 4? 6 to 5. That's
5 to 4. I think,
and like Andy said, I think most importantly on the ground level for us, Sony is now in the streaming war, which is weird to me. This is the thing I don't get. Everybody that I seem to hear from seems to say that Sony is the only smart studio for just licensing out their content to streamers, right? Let Netflix lose money. Let Disney lose money trying to keep their stuff going. You just be the company that sells it out. If they get Paramount Plus, they are absorbing Paramount Plus's problems, and I don't understand where they believe Paramount Plus's solutions would be. I don't understand what Sony would be bringing to the table to make that a better service offering than it already is. I don't know. It confuses me, Andy. It baffles me, especially at this level. What do you think?
It could actually be the opposite of what I'm thinking. I just had this thought now. Instead of Sony having their own streaming service, they could just dissolve the Paramount Plus and say, no, we're just going to license all your stuff too, and not have do the smart thing. So that's possibility as well. We don't know. It's fascinating. We haven't had an offer this big since probably since Disney bought 20th Century Fox back in 2019. So just another huge piece of film business going on. Someone's going to end up with Paramount, it seems.
I know. Somebody's going to get a hold of them. I know there was talk of like Apple getting into it. Obviously, they have Apple TV. They're working out their own deal, but it's not a bad move. 26 billion, and currently Paramount's estimated to be worth 22 billion. So that's a $4 billion, a little stipend to get you out of debt or whatever you can right in the front. I don't know if they'll take it. Like I said, it seems like Apollo has kind of offered to get in with Paramount in the past, and Paramount has turned them down. I don't know if they had Sony in their corner when they made that happen, but for what it's worth, like, this would certainly put a damper on things. Let's talk real quick before we move on about like the larger meaning of this, of the other studios. let's say Sony does it. Let's say Sony gets a hold of Paramount, they take it over. How is that going to affect competition, right? Disney, I would say 20th Century Fox, but that's Disney. Apple, Universal, Warner Brothers. Are they threatened by this at all? I mean, I think currently they all have deals with Sony to have their content in their libraries. So are they worried about losing that? I don't know.
I mean, it's just going to create another big powerhouse of filmmaking, and who knows what that's going to look like, and what it's, Sony's going to have more money, but also more debt to they got to turn profit with a big acquisition like that. But they may be able to court maybe some bigger names like Chris Nolan or James Cameron, these kind of titans of cinema at the moment. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know what exactly it would mean. If anything, I think if Sony can get a hold of Paramount's television content library and CBS, they got a game, because that is so much more content to deal with than their current offering. Like, that is thousands of hours of television, old television, man. Like, Sony would be absorbing Star Trek. Like, that's a big deal. There's a lot going on in there, Like, I don't know. Yeah, I think the move is to get in, but not to run with the streaming service thing, because it just doesn't seem to be profitable unless they can figure out a way. They can finesse a deal. Maybe they can do something with, like, if you own a PlayStation, you have unlimited access to it. Like, I don't know. I don't know what they would do. I don't know how they can finesse this, but they're gonna have to. Whatever they're cooking, it must be a good plan, because you don't throw $26 billion on the table in cash unless you really want to spend it, I guess. So. Keep it here on Outscript for more on Sony and Paramount. We'll certainly update as soon as we know whoever's buying them. And what that means for the larger cinematic universe. Anyway, we got to move on to the main event. I know Fall Guys seemed like the main event. We got to talk about Challengers. So I'm going to be taking the summary on this. Please excuse any odd delivery I might have. The movie is Challengers. So, Challengers is the new film from visionary filmmaker Luca Guadagnino, starring Zendaya as Tashi Duncan, a former tennis prodigy turned coach and a force of nature who makes no apologies for her game on and off the court. This is a summary from MGM, by the way. I want to be clear, I didn't write this. Married to a champion and on a losing streak, Mike Face, Tashi's strategy for her husband's redemption takes a surprising turn when he must face off against the washed-up Patrick, Josh O'Connor, his former best friend and Tashi's former boyfriend. As their past and presents collide and tensions run high, Tashi must ask herself, what will it cost to win? This is, like I said, Luca Guadagnino's new feature. This was actually finished last year, and they sat on it for a nice long time to get it to come out now. Now it's finally here. We reviewed his previous works, Bones and All and Suspiria, here on the podcast, so we're excited to talk about it. Andy, what did you think of Challengers?
Man, I really loved this movie. I was into it from the beginning. This is old school Hollywood. It's about the personalities, the drama. It's not about explosions or car chases or shootouts or anything like that. But it's equally as exciting just because of this relationship between these three people. When we first meet Art and Patrick, they're teenagers, not very convincingly, but they're teenagers, and they're doubles partners, and they're kind of known as fire and ice, and that is representative of their personalities. Patrick Zweig, Josh O'Connor's character, is he's a hothead, he's a bad boy, he's reckless, he plays fast as loose, and that's exciting to Tashi. But then you have Mike Faye's character, again, ice in the fire and ice, and he's safe, he's buttoned down, he's a family man, he's dependable, he's safe. But so she's kind of pulled between these two directions, and throughout the course of this 12, 15 years that it covers, they have both been her significant other, and they find themselves revolving around themselves about the film jumps back and forth a lot in time, but we meet them as young teenagers, kind of in college, and then about 10 years after college. And oh man, there's just so much going on. I'm stumbling over my words, but I really liked it. I was into it, and amazing soundtrack too.
Oh man, I know I don't have enough good things to say about Challengers. Challengers rocks. Challengers rocks, dude. A fantastic love triangle story in a way that I have not seen in a very long time. Three young, exciting, up and coming actors putting it all on the line. Luca Guadagnino seemingly you can't knock the man down. I was telling Andy, I think he can do any genre at this point. He's done weird gothic dance. He's done weird gothic young adult road trip. He's done weird love triangle tennis movie. Like my man can do it all, and it can happen on the tennis court in Challengers. This 13-year gap that Challengers plays across from 2006 to 2019 is where almost all of our stories happening. And fascinatingly, the film really only has three major roles. Outside of these three, nobody else has a lot of speaking lines. There's not really a lot of other character happening here. It's just these three, and it's fascinating, like watching them kind of come together, because it's a movie, I think, about gays. Right? It's a movie about how you see one another. I didn't mean for that to be a double entendre, but I realize now it kind of sounds like one. It's a movie about like looking at somebody and feeling one thing, and then how somebody else looks at another. Lots of looks exchange in this film, as seen in the poster with Zendaya like knocking her glasses down. You can see the reflections of each boy. I love the way she sits perfectly between the two of them in this game that is kind of overarching the whole film. The film opens with it, closes with it, and cuts back to it on occasion. And while I'm not a tennis pro, I don't know anything about tennis really, I can say confidently that the movie does a really good job of communicating the geography of tennis. The sets, the points, they've got a scoreboard in the corner for some scenes to keep things moving. They even foreshadow it with dialogue to explain where things might be going in the game. Like, they do a really good job of keeping this game tense while also cutting back to 13 years prior and then moving upward through time to 2019 when the game happens. Very sneaky to completely avoid the pandemic by setting the game in 2019. It's good. But it is also, I should say, a script not written by Guadagnino. Film's written by Justin Kuritzkes, who is the husband of Celine Song, who wrote Past Lives that we watched just this last year, which is also a movie about a love triangle. Funny story. And B, he's the potion seller guy, which I can't believe. And I went back and watched the potion seller video, and I'm like, I can't believe it's the same dude. And it is. His website's bio links to his YouTube page. It's him. Can confirm. Like, it's baffling. Have you seen that video, Andy? This is the worst thing to ask you in the middle of it. Really? Oh, dude, I gotta send you the Potion Seller. 19 million views on Potion Seller. It's insane.
Wow.
Yeah, one of those old internet video. Anyway, Justin Kuritzkes wrote this just a few years ago. I know the script was up in the air between studios. It made one of those like script blacklists that come out every few years. It's like, here's 20 scripts that are really good, and then finally, Guadagnino got a piece of it, and here we are. Anyway, I've gushed enough about the writing. We should talk about the plot. Andy, do you mind taking this for a second?
Yes. So again, we meet them as teenagers, and they're on the verge of stardom. Tashi at that point, when she's known as Tashi Duncan, man, like, she's going to be a star. Like, she's going to go pro. In fact, there's conversations like, why are you even bothering going to college? Just go pro now. You're good. You're good enough. But she wants to go to Stanford, and she ends up going to Stanford with Art, Mark Face character, where like they have her on the billboard. She's like Caitlin Clark is now, but for tennis. And Tashi loves both of these men, but she loves tennis more, and it's all she talks about. If you've ever, this was me when I was 20 years old and aspiring musician. Music was all I would talk about, to my detriment. And that's how Tashi is. Like, she cannot stop talking about it, and she's very blunt. And when the other guys come in, like, she will criticize their game like all the time, and she's right. Like, they can't say anything back. But tragically, Tashi suffers an injury in her college and career, and it's career ending. She blows out her knee, has to retire, goes into the coaching game, and that's where she is now. And she's coaching Mike Face character Darlington, who is a pro, but his career is waning, and she's kind of struggling to continue to be with him because she is someone who craves competition and high level performing, and the guy that got the chance that she didn't is kind of just kind of over it. And that's where Patrick Zweig is the opposite, and he's a disaster. He's broke. He's living out of his car. He's hooking up with women for a place to stay. but he's got that fire in him of competition, and that's part of how Tashi is drawn to them. So that's kind of the story we get, where Tashi is the best tennis player of the three, but she's injured, and that cuts her professional career short, and she's backseated as a coach, which she doesn't really want to be doing, but it's kind of the only way she can be close to the game.
A film chock full of parallels. It's also worth mentioning that Tashi Duncan does not come from money. Goes to public school. Parents can't afford nice stuff. Art and Patrick are both boarding school kids and have known each other since they were 12 and have kooky stories about each other. Maybe even a couple kinky stories about each other. So Tashi naturally is drawn to them because of their gravitas, but I mean, Patrick obviously is a genuinely talented player. And Art is very good too, but he's got a lot to learn, right? The fire and ice analogy fits very aptly. There's a lot of like code switching. There's a lot of dress change. I saw a meme today pointing out how a couple characters swap shirts multiple times throughout the movie. One of them's very noticeable, a trademark "I told you" shirt. But like, I like the way this love triangle just bounces off one another. Like, it's not just a matter of one wants the other wants the other, the other wants the other, and they just spin around. It's you have one, but you can't really have the one you really want, and the one you have is you're losing them. And it's this constant like feeling of insecurity and chaos in the middle of a game that is very precise, tennis, and trying to navigate like, I don't know, interpersonal feelings across relationships, across years, across a game, all set to an incredible soundtrack from Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, one of their best in years. I've been jamming it on Spotify all weekend. Acid House Trap. Wouldn't you know it? They said they wanted something that sounded like you were, well, it's probably a meme, but I read somewhere that they wanted something that sounded like you were literally in a club dancing, and it seems to fit like the best. It's such a emphatic,
it fits
like
everything.
Yeah, feverish beat. It's amazing. You can work out to it. You could study to it. Like it's tremendous. Like incredible music work. Also incredible visuals, I should mention. It starts off real grounded. There are some wild things going on by the end of Challengers. There are some crazy shots. And we've seen Guadagnino pull off big visuals in something intimate like Suspiria, right? We've seen him with wide lenses in Bones and All. Like here, he brings all of that. Insane things happening in the end of Challengers, like makes for a wildly biting third act. Also, we got to talk about how horny it is. I don't know if you want to take that or if I should, but like we got to, like you can't talk about this movie, I think, without talking about the sexuality.
It's definitely very, very sexually charged between all three people involved. And, you know, there's been a lot of literature written recently about how younger audiences particularly don't really like sex scenes in film and in TV anymore for a number of reasons. And there's actually less of that because of changing taste. But in this movie, Guadagnino embraces it, but he strikes that balance where it's sultry, it's sexy, it's very exciting, but it's not pornography. It's not all the way that, and but it's also not like PG, let's just kiss some and imply, you know, shut a door and you just imply what happens. Like we're shooting people in bed a lot. It's very sexy, but it's also restrained in a little, restrained enough.
Yeah. Somebody said like the sexiest scenes in the movie are the scenes that aren't any kind of sex scenes. Like it's the stuff you read between the lines that matters most. And I think that's what's so interesting about Challengers. Everybody I know that's seen it has had different favorite parts. Everybody's had different features that they talk about when they get out of it. Oh my God, I love this bit. Oh, this was so clever. Did you notice this? Like it's a film full of layers. And because there's only like 3 real parts in it, like it's wildly grounded. You are very attached to these 3 characters. You know everybody's first and last name by the time you leave the theater, and you care about them and you care about their motivations. And by the end, you really want to know who's going to win this Challenger game. It's a big deal. Like it's a really big deal. And it's amazing that a movie can pull you in over the course of just a couple of hours and have you that invested by the time the credits roll. Like huge. I think this is one of the last times Guadagnino is making like an indie feature. I think he will be a mainstream director, or at least close to it from here. Like, because I thought that about Bones and All. He was literally working with Timothée Chalamet, but it was weird and it was cannibal and like nobody went and saw it. Like, I've seen so much heat for Challengers. I think whatever he does next is going to be a big deal, right? Like it has to be. He was literally going to the set of Dune to do ADR with Zendaya, and I was reading that Austin Butler, Jacob Elordi, and Timothée Chalamet were all in the running for the 2 lead tennis player roles in this. Like, it's insane. My man is working with the biggest talent he can get. He can't miss. I don't know, dude. I think we might be seeing a great here. Like, I think Challengers might be a great film.
Yeah, definitely one of my. It's going on my top 10 list. It's a little early, but I'm putting it there. Really enjoyed it. This probably would have been up for some awards things had it come out last fall. And again, it backseats the tennis, but it still feels like a tennis movie. This was my big complaint about King Richard, the Will Smith vehicle, is that it never really felt like you just had people kind of in wearing tennis costumes and never got into the weeds. But our characters feel much more like authentic players, and the court stuff is really exciting. It almost kind of turns into an anime. At one point, there's a part where you get the POV of the ball going back and forth, and it's nuts. You get this really cool down up shot from underneath the court, which had to have been shot on like glass or something like that. Just some really cool camera work, and again, it doesn't backseat the sport as a character like a lot of other movies do.
No, I do want to say this is shot by Guadagnino's longtime cinematographer collaborator. I cannot pronounce their name. I'm just going to take a crack at it. Sayambu Mukdipram. Maybe that's close. They shot like his last like 3 features, and they're amazing. And I hope they continue working with him. Like, it really does feel like a lightning in a bottle feature. And I say that from a director who, again, doesn't miss, dude. Bones and All was great. Suspiria was great. Like, both a blast. I need to go check out Call Me By Your Name. I still haven't seen it, but obviously a banger. Put Chalamet on the map. Knocked Army Hammer out of his career. No, that was accusations of cannibalism, actually. But Challenger's a lot of fun. Andy, any other thoughts or recommendations?
I just want to say that we have 3 incredible performances. Obviously, Zendaya is the big star, but both Mike Faist, who was in the West Side Story remake and is a classically trained dancer, he had to beef up a little bit for this role, had to put on some weight because he was so lean in that other movie. The movie's so tactile, like sweat just dripping off everyone. And Josh O'Connor, who's like such a nice guy in real life, and like plays this guy who's kind of a douchebag, kind of a jerk so well. He's so convincing, and it's like that's how the sign of a great actor, where he like really turns into someone that you know him not to be. So really stellar performances.
Yeah, notably, I should say one of the best American accents I've heard all year from a Brit. Meanwhile, like Aaron Taylor Johnson is dying in The Fall Guy. He could barely keep it together. It's hilarious. Maybe might have been on purpose in Fall Guy, though. I genuinely couldn't tell. Josh O'Connor gets away with it. You would never know. He's a Brit. Also, one more mention before recommendations. The soundtrack's real good. Please go check out the Challenger soundtrack. It's free, right? You don't have to go to movie ticket to check out the soundtrack. You can go hit that right now, and then it'll be like a needle drop whenever you watch the feature. Andy, would you recommend Challengers?
I absolutely would. This is easily one of my favorites of the year so far. Incredible performances from all our 3 stars: Zendaya, Mike Faist, Josh O'Connor. Really exciting storytelling, and it's a full 2 hours. And I was just glued to the screen the entire time. It's not like we were talking about The Fall Guy, where there's slow moments where you're bored, go do laundry. None of that. I was just glued 100% in. Kicking soundtrack. I've added the soundtrack to my ongoing playlist. Fits with everything. People have been putting the soundtrack to like fight scenes and car chases and other movies, and it just works so well. Highly recommend. Definitely one of the highlights of the year.
Same. It's one of the best love triangle features I've seen in a minute. They should put it in the Criterion Collection, along with Guadagnino's other feature. Challengers is a bop. Please go see Challengers. Buy the Blu-ray. Like, it's good stuff, dude. Go support Challengers. This movie rocks. The memes are true. Challengers is great. And that's, that's Challengers. That's The Fall Guy. It's episode 251. Andy, what are we watching next week?
So this week is Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which is the big release from director Wes Ball, who I can't remember what else he's done.
The Maze Runner, and he's doing that new. He's doing Zelda. He's doing the Zelda movie after this.
Right.
So whatever Zelda is.
I'm really excited about this. I'm a big fan of the remakes, the Matthew Vaughn remakes that were done in the mid 2010s. This looks really good. It's got some good voice acting, apes together strong. I'm excited about it for sure. And then we're also going to be taking a look at The Idea of You, which is the rom-com starring Anne Hathaway and Nicholas Galitzin, which came out on Amazon Prime actually this past Friday, but we'll be taking a look at it on streaming. Some upcoming movies that we're going to be taking a look at and that are going to be coming out, possibly Back to Black, the Amy Winehouse biopic, Imaginary Friends. We're probably not going to watch that, but that's coming out on May 17th. That's the Ryan Reynolds family feature. The Strangers Chapter 1 is also May 17th, the horror movie. And of course, Memorial Day, May 24th, Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. My hype is in orbit for that movie. But for next week, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes and The Idea of You.
Could not be more excited for Furiosa. If you enjoyed the show today, the best way to support us here at Offscript is just subscribe. Subscribe to the show on your favorite platform, whether that's on YouTube, where we upload the live stream and videos every week, whether that's on Facebook or Twitter, Instagram. You can follow us over there. Any audio platforms, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartMedia, the show is available. You might even be hearing us right now, and you can hit the subscribe button there. You can also rate and review. Believe it or not, just dropping a 5 stars is a huge help. Dropping a couple words helps too. If you want to bother leaving a rating, we'd appreciate it. And, comment, engage. That's what I need. Engagement from y'all. Just let us know what's going on. Let us know you're alive. Let us know you're watching movies out there just like us. We love talking to y'all. We love talking about movies. And that's Offscript episode 251. From all of us at Offscript, the home of Bold Cinema, I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Thanks for watching.